Paco, how involved were you at the inception of the farming side? Were you part of the planning, or my guess would be your dad said, okay, this is the plan. This is your role.
Yeah, that's more like it. But what happened was, our main family business is cable TV and broadband.
I was going to ask that. There were so many things that you could have gone to. Of course, you could have gone to politics.
Yes.
Because of course your family pedigree dates back to your grandfather, President Magsaysay. Cable TV is what made your dad.
Yes.
And why this? I mean, you grew up in Texas.
Yes.
You could have pursued a career abroad.
Yes. Yeah.
What made you go into raising cattle?
Well, I moved back to the Philippines in '93.
Okay.
And my father got into dairy farming in 2007.
Did he call you back, or were you?
He called me back because he ran for vice president with Miriam.
That's right. Yes.
In '91.
Yes.
And then he ran with the Lakas Laban coalition in '95 as senator, and he won his first term, '95, and it stretched to 2007. He did 2 terms as a senator. So he left me alone in the business. I was running the business. And so one day when he retired as a senator in 2007.
Oh, you have a boss.
I have a boss now. But he says, I'm going to go into dairy farming.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? Dairy farming? Why don't you get into a business?
TV to dairy farming.
Yeah, that's a little bit more related to our business. So we can sort of play off each other, right? He goes, no, I want to get into dairy farming because your lolo wanted to go into farming when he finished his term as president.
I see.
So how do I argue with that?
Right.
So, okay, I understand, but
I'll think that you were a very obedient son.
Of course, I don't want to rock the boat, right? So I said, I'll leave you to that, and I'll just handle the cable. So for the first year of meetings and planning and coordination, I never joined any of the meetings.
Okay.
But one day he comes into my office and he says, Paco, can you help me sell the milk? Because we're throwing away a lot of milk. We can't sell it fast enough. And
so when things get into trouble, Paco, come here and fix it.
help us
that
here.
That sounds familiar to me.
No problem. I said, let's see. So I went to the farm. And I opened the car door, and the first thing that hit me was a smell because I wasn't used to it.
You weren't but you were in Texas.
Yes, I was in Texas.
But not in the farm.
Not in the farm. Yeah.
Okay.
I was in Southwest Houston. I was living behind Jumbo Grocery.
Okay.
And I think that's when I realized that I wanted to help him out on a personal level. So when I incorporated Carmen's Best in 2009, there were no 5-year plans or 10-year plans that we had written out. It was just making the most of the milk, and we don't want to throw it away. And we just sort of went with the flow, going where the market was, selling where we could find distributors, and it just sort of took a life of its own, and it just kept on growing, So I think people realized that when we talked about we were not cutting corners with our ingredients and whatnot, that we were really not doing it. And so the credibility of our company was very important to us because we were planning to really come up with other dairy products. And we wanted to play off our existing customer base, And I think that's what the Metro Pacific guys saw, that we had such a good and clean name in the market in terms of premium dairy products. So,
Did you draw from any of your experience in Texas? I know we're both Houston boys, but did you, for example, draw inspiration from Bluebell ice cream, or maybe something more radical like Ben & Jerry's that is an ice cream but also a social platform for many issues?
Well, the first 4 flavors we came up with was Brazilian coffee, butter pecan, I think we had Madagascar vanilla.
Okay, so these sounds like Bluebell.
And malted milk.
Okay.
So each flavor will have a story because, it draws from my childhood or from my experience of living in the US or even traveling. So that's why our company is so different. We didn't have the typical ube, makapuno, or
Right.
mango ice cream. It was really Western flavors.
Right.
And people were coming up with more localized flavors, whereas my background is more Western, so that's what I was.
It suited your taste.
Yeah, that's what I got used to eating
Okay.
when I was growing up. So.
But was that in the back of your mind somehow that you were looking at Carmen's Best and maybe imagining it as a Filipino brand that can compete worldwide? Or were you simply, going to your Bluebell favorites here?
Well, I really wanted to make ice cream for me. So
Okay.
I was the market.
Actually, that's good. If you like the product yourself, I think you're in a good
That's one
situation.
step, yeah. So since I was the market, I was the one doing the product development, the flavors, choosing the ingredients, and so on. So it was not always choosing what would give us the best margin. It was what tasted the best.
Right.
And for the most part, normally that's the more expensive ingredients.
Right.
When you talk about, a deeper chocolate or
Right.
a better tasting pistachio.
Right.
So, and since we're such a small company, we didn't have the luxury of leverage because
Right.
our volume was so small.
Right.
I mean, there were times that I had to go to Santis and buy from the shelf. And,
Okay.
the margins that they have is so big, right?
Right.
So my cost was very high. So when people say that, our ice cream is so expensive, I kind of get hurt because if you only knew what my margins are, you probably wouldn't do this as a business if you were the business,
Right.
if the business person. But, because of the quality that we have in mind, I didn't want to compromise that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, with the entry of Metro Pacific, I mean, are you looking at some improvements there? I mean, growing your margins? And maybe as a follow-up question to that, how long can Carmen's Best remain artisanal? Because I am assuming that Metro Pacific got into this because they want to scale it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's the first thing I asked them was, are you guys planning to change the quality? And I think they were very firm in saying that, no, we want to grow the business. And to grow it, if you change the quality, you'll have smaller market, right? So to begin with, since we cater to the AB market and it's already the smallest market in the Philippines, we will maintain that market and hopefully get a deeper penetration in terms of percentage. And hopefully more of the aspirational upper C and C market will buy our product. Because if you look at it, our ice cream selling at 110 or 180 pesos is still a lot less than going to Starbucks, buying a small coffee.
Right.
And yet, a lot of people are buying, and that's primarily water.
Right.
Ours is fresh milk
Right.
and no water, right?
Right.
So, yeah, quality-wise, it's very different.
It was interesting when you told me once that ice cream is halal, or is it just Carmen's Best that is halal?
We had to get our halal certificate
Right.
because we were serving the airlines.
Right.
And in terms of halal for ice cream, it's primarily using pork,
I see.
which is not really used in ice cream.
Yeah.
But in the US, there are some ice cream flavors with bacon.
Yeah.
And also food coloring, which uses animal.
Yeah.
But then we don't really use food coloring. So
Because that's interesting. I hear that the halal food industry is about $2.6 trillion. Is that something that's drawing your attention, or you're just really focused on making a good ice cream, and if it becomes successful here and there, all the better?
well, since we have halal, it would be difficult for us to do other ice cream kinds that
I see.
would compromise our halal certificate.
I see.
And since a big segment of our business comes from airlines, I think halal is important for us. What you mentioned regarding the halal market is huge. I know Southeast Asia has a very big halal market. That's why we're also concentrating there. So hopefully we can take advantage of our quality and our halal certificate.
Right, because you were mentioning Indonesia before, I think much bigger market than Singapore.
Yes.
You're talking about 200 plus million people.
Yes.
But interestingly, I don't know if they are more lactose tolerant than Filipinos are, because I think most people in the world, 65%, are not
Lactose intolerant.
lactose intolerant, and yet here you are, you're thriving.
Yes. I guess we're very niche, as I mentioned earlier. And the people who like or who enjoy ice cream, when they try our product, they know it's very different. When we look at exporting our products, unlike other Filipino food companies, they follow where the Filipinos are, right? They look where the overseas workers are and whatnot. For us, we can't really do that because we go for the local market. That's why the taste of our ice cream is more Western. It's more American style. So I think it worked well in Singapore because it has a very Western taste, and there's a lot of Westerners in Singapore. Europe would not be a good market because they're more gelato. If you look at Northern Asia, Taiwan, you look at Hong Kong, you look at China, they're not into sweets, they're not into desserts so much. So it's understanding the culture, it's understanding your market, and it's a combination of these things that, where best for you to go.
Interesting. You really put your MBA degree to work.
That's right.
But please stay with us. We'll be right back with Mr. Paco Magsaysay. This is Business of Politics.